FY23 approved number and put it in as the FY24 plan. As a BET, we're going to ask you to go back and look at those numbers. Let's understand where we are with actuals to date versus just saying, well, this is what I had in my budget last year. I want the same amount this year. Unfortunately, this is an exceptionally challenging year. These items may be extremely small in terms of their dollar figure, but as we do this across the city side, it will add up in terms of the difference we can make to our constituents, to our property holders in the city. So we just want to be very, very careful of that. With that,
And just 1 second, I'm just admitting Henry and Ann, just give it like 10 seconds and they should be.
Sure.
Okay, they're in.
Okay, thanks. With that, Tom, why don't we go ahead and start to look at early childhood?
Okay.
All right, and we'll let you scroll to that area because you're down in.
Yep. Okay, so how's the sizing on this? You guys, can you see everything?
Yep.
Okay, just as we have done in the past, I am going to scroll to the bottom of community services just to give you a look at Lamond's World. And you can see over here, after doing the fair rent and youth services, Lamond and team are currently at a 0.5% increase over the 23 approved. So well within our original guidelines. So now we will take it back up to early childhood, and Lamond, take it away.
So Lamond, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Now we can't. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our early childhood. As you can see, this is a one-time full position, Mary Oster. And to your point around budgeting, so we looked at line item 5258. And this is the $12,000 is a match that the city's required from the $6 million that we received from the state for our school readiness. I'm sorry, one phone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so the 12,000, as you can see, to your point, the explanation of why it's 12,000, that is a percentage match that the city's required for the 6 million that received to subsidize nearly around 900 young ones to have an early childhood experience. Therefore, that money is used to professional development through Mary Oster, will they provide training for the early childhood teachers.
Okay. Thank you. I know it's very small, Lamont, but the mileage reimbursement, is there any opportunity to use city vehicles here so we're not having to reimburse mileage?
Yes. So my department my unit in Mary's unit, we don't have access to city vehicles.
Okay.
Just the opportunity to check one out just never has come to our favor in order to do so.
Okay. Questions from other BET members?
No, I congratulate Lamond on all the things that he's doing to try to keep these things down as low as possible.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Shall we move to human services?
All right, human services. You can see their
Human services.
their ask over the 23 approved, 2.19%. No head count items to discuss on this one. Lamond?
Sure. So one of the things we looked at, to your point again, took a very good close look at this. You can see in the salary, there was 29,493 and our budget still is 5508. We have two part-time, what we call community resource hubs. I don't know if you recall when I presented to you all maybe about a year and a half ago, the city of Norwalk enacted what is called the community resource hub, where we have two part-time employees who serve as resources for our residents when they're most in need. And so fiscal year 22, we had a part-time, and now we are back at full budget. Those are two part-time positions that meet the need for that 854,799 number. And then one of the areas that I think you'll be pleased with me, line item, Tom, 5225, typing services.
Yep,
This is
got it.
where the new director, she was going to staff the Women's Commission. That has been moved into Michelle Wood, so we do not need a type in line, so I can save the city additional 1440.
Thank you, Lamont.
Yes, sir.
Every penny helps.
I took your advice, and I really did. I looked at it
That's-
thoroughly.
Thank you. And
Correct.
again, Lamont, for the line items under that 52, 35, 37, 45, et cetera, all of those look to be straight lifts.
Yes, they
Here.
are, and I can speak to that. We had a vacancy, then we filled it, and it is my opinion that if we could support staff with various trainings and membership dues to support the work, we would definitely like to pursue that. We just haven't used it regularly, but we would like to definitely take advantage of these opportunities now that we're out of COVID.
Okay, and all of those, I understand that, but all of those are kind of, these are all rounding errors. I recognize
correct,
that. But we're
I
in
was
that
like
kind of,
279, 265.
Yeah,
So in
but-
my office, Jasmine often rounds them off for us.
no, I get it. I'm just on the point of, we would like to do those things for our hire, but do we have to do them in this fiscal year? Right, again, not gonna save our taxpayers a ton of money, but if you could just really scrub that to the mayor's point of must-dos versus would like to do's, I'd appreciate it if you do that across all the different departments, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Absolutely.
And just on the human services, if I could add, taking a look at the IT hardware, which theoretically is capital, but if you did $96 in 22 and 4,500 last year, do you really need the 4,500?
Yes, we actually received a grant when we started. Again, this is the Family Navigation Program that the first 2 years, it was fully subsidized by a grant. And so as we move forward from year to year, the cost will move to the city side. In partnership with the IT, we had to do an overhaul for Jasmine. I have Jasmine on the phone just to jog my memory. How many laptops and what was that? They can hear you. So you're on the record.
Yes, hi. We recently requested two new laptops for the community resource specialist, and also additional IT equipment for the laptop, the docket monitors, and yes, those are coming up.
And I'm not a hardware person, but what we did was we did some cost savings early on with the laptops, but with Learn, and it didn't have enough memory. So we ended up having to actually buy everything new, as opposed to my limited knowledge, just trying to increase memory and so forth.
Okay, and then I guess this is more a question for Henry and Tom, but the city doesn't classify that as capital expense. It sits within an operating budget. I would think IT hardware is capital.
Capital has to be $5,000 or more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions or comments from other Board of Estimate and Tax members?
Thank you, Jasmine.
All right, thank you. Senior services obviously is going to zero, thank you, but is that contractual service number gonna show up someplace else in your budget, or are we truly zeroing that out?
Right. This is even from several years. Let me see where you are. Right. So that was moved into my budget as community service, chief of community services.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, it is a contractual with other things that I'll be prepared to speak to.
Okay, then let's go ahead to Chief of Community Services.
Speaking of which, right here, Lamond,
Okay.
overall for your department, 1.27%. 9.61 ask on the salary side. So if you want to take it from here.
Sure. So again, to your point, the 1440 is our typing account. As chief of community services, the typing for the Common Council Community Services comes out of that budget. So that's where you see that 1440 line throughout. Jasmine, I see here we did 180 for subscription. Is that something that we still need?
Correct. That's the Norwalk and online only, the Norwalk Hour newspaper online.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have a large city account for everyone, but you know, I would defer to you all for that.
Lamont, can you talk about 5298, the other contractual services? That's just a really big number. What's in there? I know it's gone
Absolutely.
down.
I am so prepared. Oh, I came ready tonight. I did. Well, it's thanks to Jasmine. So 5298, that's where you would see our municipal agent for the elderly board. That is $150,000 that we subcontract with Family Children Aid to serve our seniors. Also, if you recall, we have a contract with Mid-Fairfield with the public schools to serve our most vulnerable English language learners, and our migrant population has moved to the city of Norwalk. So they provide therapeutic services through my budget. And there was an increase this year. The 150 had the FCA, who serves as our senior municipal agent for the L, they have not received an increase in well over 15, probably even longer. So my office with them, with FCA, they have asked for a COLA increase for the first time in over a decade, which is the 13,050, which you see also indicated in the, I'm sorry, that's my son in the background.
That's quite all right.
I don't know if you all can, honey. Which is the 13,050. You see, also you'll see a bump from recall. I spoke with this group, maybe about a year and a half. So we still have 75,900 from our equity grant, and also which is also subsidized by the city. So that money is still being rolled over year to year until we really work with our new DEI officer to see what services are needed to support that. But that's both city and grant funding combined.
Okay, do we have
Which
to,
will get us to that total.
yeah. Do we have to keep that grant money in there, given that, you know, again, I'm thinking about timing for the new DEI officer, when that will roll in. Will we leverage all of that funding within the fiscal year? Should we look to potentially bring that down based on what portion of the year we'll actually be able to operationalize against that funding?
I
Is
think
there
we'll have to
any-
really look at the percentage of what actually is city money and what actually is the grant money. That's the combination of the two.
Okay. If you could look at that and let us know. Again, I'm thinking about the fact that if we're only really have the individual in place 9 months of the fiscal year, can we bring that money down? If you need more, can you come back through contingency for doing some of that? Again, just making sure that what's in the budget, we're really going to spend versus, you know, holding it in the hopes that we can spend it.
May I ask a question?
Please, Ann.
You're on mute, Lamont.
Okay,
I
my-
apologize. I was just saying I could definitely look at that to see. I just have the combined, and I'll have my office look at exactly out of that 75,900, what is the grants part of it and what is the city allocation.
Thank you. Ann?
What is exactly the contracted senior services?
Sure. So that's actually a state statute that as a municipality, we are asked to have a municipal agent for the elderly. And we have selected through a competitive bidding process, Family Children's Agency, to serve as our municipal agent for the elderly. And they provide case management, helping our seniors identify the appropriate health insurance products that they can use. They also, when we do our program with our seniors to review their taxes with the city, they facilitate that entire process on behalf of the city. And then they provide just case management services or helping seniors identify services specifically that they may be eligible, working with the Southwestern Area Office on Aging. We do not have an office in Norwalk, and so they've helped facilitate that to make sure our seniors are served. The headquarters is located in the city of Bridgeport.
And is this contractor, are they purely a contractor, or are they a not-for-profit that helps seniors?
Well, they are a non-for-profit, but the city subcontracts them to provide this service on behalf of the city.
Okay, I'm just curious how that could overlap with the Norwalk Senior Center, who I know is a recipient of our outside grant money.
Yeah, Norwalk Senior is a membership organization, and these are services that any senior could to get support from.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sure.
Additional questions from anybody on the BET about the Chief of Community Services budget?
Not I.
Okay,
Ed, can I just ask for clarification? Are we zeroing out that typing for chief as we did with the other department? Or
No,
will
not
we-
for Chief for Human Services.
Just for,
I still
okay.
have an active common council committee.
okay. Just wanted to be sure.
okay.
Right. So for Human Services, there's no need for typing services. She doesn't oversee the Women's Commission.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Health Administration.
Thank you.
All right. Health Administration down to the bottom line, they are at a 3.6% request over 23 approved. No head count items here. Yeah, take it. I believe Deanna is on. There she is. And take it away.
Good
Hey,
evening,
Deanna.
everyone. I'm Deanna Diamore, Director of Health for the City of Norwalk. So we have several different sections within this budget that are for the health department. So the first one is health administration. So the largest increase here is due to staffing. Actually, overall, our overall increase, 83% of the requested increase is for wage increases. And so that includes the, cost of living increases and also step progression. So the health department has had a lot of movement and change within our staff. We've hired new staff. And so as they progress through the contract, the salary goes up, until they get to the top step. So you'll see that increase for the request for the regular wages and salary for the full timers. Other highlights within health admin include a request for the telephone line item 01-2011-5245. We're requesting an additional $2,296 because over the past fiscal years, we've seen increases in that line item. We actually overexpended last year. Again, as we add new staff members, we've had to add more lines. We've also had more use of cell phones. With the mayor support and the BET support, we've actually increased our staffing over the past few years, recognizing the value of the health department in protecting community health. So as those increases come up, so do some of the others, including increases in office and educational supplies. So you'll see some increases in those line items as well. Other highlights for health admin, I know we've had some questions about other professional services. So we're an accredited health department. So if you see under 01-2011-5258, under that, a good portion of that, about $5,600 of that line is to go towards our accreditation fees. We also have had some additional support for committees and minutes under professional services, so that we support 3, the Shellfish Commission, the Water Quality Committee, and the Board of Health. So that's included within that as well. In terms of looking for some potential cuts, I think we can probably look at 5262 under here, other machinery equipment. We can probably make reductions there and, figure out some of the other line items if we need to expend money unexpectedly. So I think we could make some reductions there.
Deanna, what I would ask is, that's a good example, 5262, 5272, right? All of these looks like we took the FY23 budget and plopped it in as our request for FY24. I would encourage you to look at what your actual run rate is in FY23 and see if we can make adjustments downward based on the actual run rate versus just saying, I budgeted X last year, I'm going to budget the same this year. I know it's pennies on the dollar, but every penny helps at this point.
Okay, we can definitely do that for each of these line items. Yeah, so I think we do need the increases in like the telephone and and obviously for the staffing. But we can look to see if there are some additional cuts we can make in other areas.
I have a question about postage and membership dues. I noticed that kind of doubled from the actual in FY22 to the recommended 24. Is there a reason behind that? Is that like increase in staff or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. So in terms of the membership, we're trying to put all of the memberships within the department and the different divisions under this one line item. So we did make some like reductions in some of the others in the other divisions that we'll go over later. So we're trying to put like the nursing association memberships, take that out of, preventable diseases and put it under here. American Public Health Association, Connecticut Association of Directors of Health, Connecticut Public Health Association, NACHO, which is our national association. So putting them all in wonder. So that's why that specific line item went in an increase. In terms of the postage, we looked back at other years. So we've seen some reductions over the past few years in postage. But prior to that, we used to spend sometimes over about 11,000, about 10,000. So we're trying to give our best estimate based on, not just these past couple of years, because, things were looked a little different because of COVID, and now we're coming out of COVID. And we're, getting back to some of our normal business. So that's why we had put that request in for the postage. And Carla, I don't know if you have anything to add in for that.
Actually, I don't. I do see that really in the past couple of years due to COVID, we've lessened those costs. But again, as Deanna was saying, and just piggybacking on what she was saying, in the past, we've spent significantly more than that. So the estimation, we could definitely take a look at it and look at what our actuals are now and seeing what they could possibly be within the next year and see if there's any
Yeah, I would ask you to do that,
We'll
Carla.
go-
I'd also like to
From
understand
there.
why there's so much. Is it a legal requirement to rely on traditional, I'll call it snail mail versus email and electronic communications, which have a far lower cost associated with them?
We send out a lot of legal notices because we do housing code enforcement. We also, but it's a great idea though to continue to look at that and to see if there's other solutions in place. But some things we legally do have to send by mail.
Yeah. So if it understood, but if you could look at, again, your run rate on real actuals this year, anything that we might be able to move to electronic to help bring that number down, that would help. Additional questions or comments from the BET?
Ed, I have a question.
Yes, Artie.
I seem to remember, I don't know if we did this last year or the year before, but we funded, I believe it was an epidemiologist for COVID. Is that still being staffed and funded?
Yeah, so you would have approved it for this current fiscal year to be the program director of epidemiology and informatics, and that person is under wages and salary, regular under this administration division. That person is, that position's in here.
Now that was specific to COVID. Is that something we're still looking to continue for a year or two, or what is your plan for that position?
I see our epidemiologist as being a core component of our public health department and part of our workforce. And it's monitoring health data is the first essential public health service. So, he's assisted us with monitoring MPOX. He's assisted us, he's right now looking at like substance use data. So I see this as, I see our epidemiologist as a core part of current public health practice and the future of public health.
But let me just add to that or expand that a little bit more. But if he was only brought in for COVID, who was doing that other support information before COVID?
We weren't doing a lot of it. A lot of the core like local data, utilizing local data to inform our decision making. We had to rely on some reports from the state, but it hadn't been done in a very comprehensive way. We've added and built a lot more capacity. And I'll just add, like during COVID, before we were able to bring him on, I was doing a lot of that, and I was doing that, upon in addition to everything else I was doing, and I was working 7 days a week, multiple hours a day, just trying to, get it all done, and that's not sustainable.
What is the
But-
salary of that individual, of the epidemiologist?
Sure. It's NASA grade 6, and let me just pull up I have the number in front of me. That is 100, for next fiscal year, we're asking for $110,578.
Is it possible, given that we are no longer in a crisis mode, that either that individual could be contracted out so that the city is not bearing all the health and benefits that go along with a full-time person, and that person can still support you, but perhaps it's more on a part-time or contract basis? It's something to think about.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that, based on, my professional experience and where we are as a city, and what I think, having someone available. I mean, he's available and at all times to me when things come up on evenings and weekends. He's there, he's providing that support, and he's there, for the city as well. But if we have a case of infectious disease that comes up and we need to do follow-up, he's available. So I think it's important to have that person, having the staff person there.
But when you say he's available, to me, that sounds more like a consultant than a full-time job. I'm just putting it out there. The other element, going back to Ed's comment, is there are 4 other categories here. If you were to zero them out and then work from that base as to what you need, and working off the fact that if something comes up in a contingency, you can come back to the BET and say, I need these funds, rather than providing, any kind of catch-all or, a nice to have service. So determining what it is that you might really need, but doing it from a zero base. With the caveat that should you need those services, you come back to the BET, just like you needed the service for the epidemiologist, and the BET and the finance department can facilitate a transfer of funds.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Are you saying that for my entire budget, or there's?
I'm saying for the 4 areas that are other professional services, other machinery and equipment, other contractual services, and other operating supplies. Just take those 4 accounts, zero them out, and then work up from a zero base as to what you absolutely need, and what you might need, you can come back to the BET.
Okay, just to give you a quick answer right now, for other professional services, I did do that. So I need $5,600 for the Fabry accreditation fee. I estimated 12 months at $120 each to take minutes for the 3 committees. So that's about $4,320. Background checks come out of this account. So that might be one where, I did an estimate based on previous years, how many background checks need to be done. And I came up with a number, but if, that could be one of those where it's,
So
unexpected, that.
you don't need to give us an answer right now, but if you could just go back and do that analysis by looking at those 4 other categories, zeroing them out and then determining what you need, and then come back to Tom and Henry, and we can look at it from there.
Right.
Because there may very well be some savings from that.
And Deanna, it's not just in administration. We'll get through all of the departments. It'll be that same thought. Again, we don't want you to have to come back every 5 minutes for, I need more out of contingency for this, or I need more out of contingency for that. But we also don't want to, I'll use an inappropriate term because I know you're not doing this, but we don't want to pad budgets thinking, well, I've got my own little contingency in my budget so I can move things from one line item to the next. That's our whole point. In this fiscal year, we're just asking every single department to be as controlled as possible in what we're putting in the must-have spend, recognizing anything else we can leverage contingency in that process for throughout the year. So that's the ask, and that's the pressure you're feeling here. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just, I'm just curious on one quick question, and I won't belabor this, but you mentioned that other professional services is some recording of minutes. Do we use this, is that the typing services that we use in other departments?
Correct.
Okay,
So in the past, we used to do our own minutes with our staff. We used to do them, and then we wanted to transition to using Telesco like most of the other departments. So then we added it to that line item. But if you think it should be in another specific line item, we can make that change.
No, I'm just saying that it should be in typing services. I mean, that's a minor thing. It's an account allocation, really.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this, and Henry's talked about this a couple of times, is we should strive to make sure we get all of the expenses in the right categories. It makes everybody's life a little bit easier when we go forward and doing budgeting in the future, and also taking a look at the performance, and perhaps even centralizing something or negotiating with Telesco when we see what the entire picture is. Let me ask you another question. Do you deal with Telesco on your own, or is that done through somebody else in the city?
It's through the city clerk's office.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay.
And in the future, we might want to look at putting all that kind of service under the city clerk so we can monitor how much we're actually spending.
Yep.
And it probably would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking more along, and not a subject we want to get into now, but I'm thinking more along a centralized, what can be centralized and controlled and then charged back to departments. But it's a food for another.
It's a very good thought, as is the thought on consistent line item use department to department. Those are things, Henry, Tom, I think we can talk about in our regular meetings going forward. Anything else for health administration? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ed, I just need to ask again, just for clarity, for my sake, is the epidemiologist a contract employee or a full-time employee?
Full-time employee.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, anything else for health administration?
I would just add that if Mr. Daniels could also go back and look at the previous accounts that we discussed on these other columns and do that zero-based exercise on the other line items.
Yeah.
To really come up with what is necessary.
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right, shall we move to building maintenance?
This is a relatively small one. The ask is 5% over the 23 approved, no headcount issues. There's no salaries or anything in here. This is just mainly utilities. Lamond, you want to take this one, or do you have someone on your team?
That's,
Neil's
No,
here.
that's not me.
Yeah, Neil
Take
is
it,
here.
Lamont, will you?
I yield to my friend Neil Reddy.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good. So the first line item is electric. Typically what we do is look over three clean years of utility consumption. You know, we had COVID in there, which kind of skews the numbers a little bit. we were running a little bit short across the board going into the end of this year. So we didn't ask a 6% there.
Mhm.
And do you want me to just continue down the line?
Yeah, unless
Okay.
anybody has any specific questions.
Okay, so same thing with water. It's just a 5%. We expect a small increase there. They haven't published the exact number on what that would look like. So we stayed with a 5% number.
Mhm.
The next number is going to be, so the natural gas, we put 14% in there, thinking that it wouldn't go up much greater than that. We received a new contract in December, which brought that number up to 146%. So that number has to either be looked to be increased at this, during this time, or if we have to go back to the BET at a later date. And that's going to hold true across all the buildings as far as it relates to natural gas.
Mhm. I would ask that you come back as part of contingency on that we don't build it into the budget right now.
Okay.
Neil,
So
if I
let me
recall-
just understand that 15,000 that you've got in there is 146% or is not 146%?
Right now, we're only increasing it 14%, right? So that would be, it would go up almost three times that.
Neil,
So-
did we enter into an 18-month contract with a price cap? So that's why it's going up?
So I was given the new contract amount in, I think it was the very end of November, early December. Let me just pull up where we were at before. So we were at, the unit price was $637 per million MBTUs, right? And now today it's $1565 going into the new year.
Wasn't the market much higher and that's why we entered into a long-term agreement?
I don't think the natural gas is so much that we're fortunate on the electric side. We were locked in prior to going into this year, which was a great thing. I think that goes out to 2024. But the two things that got hit were heating oil, heating fuel, and natural gas. So, like I said, at the time when I did the budget, we were looking at a 14% increase based on early, I guess, communication from the utilities. And then when we got the contract, it was 146%. Yes.
How many buildings is that?
Probably like a half dozen or so. I'd have to go through.
Yeah, I have a question about electric. If you're locked into the contract till 2024 and
Yep.
the price stays for the most part the same, and it seems like you were able to stay within the 30K for this year, would you be able to shave off like 1,000 or 800 for electric?
So the prior years, it appears like it wasn't budgeted correctly. And so we're seeing some shortages coming into the end of this year. Hence, that's why we went up the extra percentage to cover us going into the new year. So though we could try to go down, I think we would be back here at BET again sometime. We're going to be coming to you probably within a month or so for an up to increase a couple of accounts that we have. So right now, 6% is a pretty solid number.
I'm sorry, are we finished with that one? But I'm still concerned about this gas number. If this is in there at only 14%, we've got to jack that up.
Yep.
Significantly.
Yes, sir.
I'm suggesting that we take that out of contingency.
Well, why do we take it
Want to
out?
add
Why
it
do
to
we
the
take it out
budget?
of
We certainly
contingency? Why
can.
don't we, why can't we just raise it now? I mean, we're taking numbers down, but on the same token, we should raise it up too, if that's what it's going to be.
Jim, we certainly can.
I mean, it
If
doesn't-
it's, I'm sorry, I'm agreeing. If it's going to be a certain number, we should know what it is and we should budget for it.
So
Yeah, I
Neil, do
agree.
we have the new number?
I would have to get that for you. I can have that to you.
Well, it's
but-
146%.
Yeah, 100 of that number, yes.
Yeah, and Neil, that would be across, that'd be citywide. I'd need it for
So
all the buildings, right?
So there's two things affected here. So the gas is going up 146%. Originally, we thought the heating fuel was going to go up considerably more. And I budgeted 100% for that. And that's now coming in at 58% of my number. 58%. Yep.
All right,
Okay,
so
so
we need
now
to take that number down.
That number is going to come down and the heating oil is going to go up. I mean, the gas will go up.
Neil, do
So-
we agree to this with several suppliers? Do we negotiate contracts? Or are we just handed an increase by our vendor?
I'm not part of the negotiations. That's all done through purchasing, I believe.
Yeah, I think we should look at opportunities also. Eversource has increased their fees significantly. We certainly have to consider that. But there also could be some other options that we need to explore.
So I think we got a next step here, right? Neil, we need to see your ups and downs on gas
Yep.
and heating fuel. And then we need to have a conversation with procurement, I guess, on how those contracts were written, who were bidding, and is there opportunity for cost savings in there? Does that make sense to everybody?
It does, and we are a pretty good consumer as well. So we should be able to find some options that be a little bit more, a little less costly.
Yeah.
Well,
You
can
know,
I
I
ask a
have
question?
another question for you, though. Line items 52, 41, 42, and 44. What's the difference then in line item 52, 67, which is listed as plumbing, heating, electrical services?
Plumbing, heating, electrical services, typical work that we may contract out.
So is that the actual maintenance on systems versus the fuel costs?
Yes. This is all maintenance on plumbing, heating, and electrical services. And then you have other repairs and maintenance. Could be a roof repair, could be a window repair, could be a door repair, right? And then security systems it typically takes into account the physical security system or person, plus all the other services, burglar alarms, fire alarm monitoring, fire alarm inspections, stuff of that nature.
And why is that up so significantly versus FY22 actual?
Which one? Security?
Yeah.
Yeah, security, the health department increased their security. I think it was from Deanna may be able to speak, or Carla can maybe speak to us a little bit better, but I believe we're at 39 hours, probably coming up from 20 some hours a week. So they increased the hours of the security guard.
And obviously, we want everybody safe, but is that something that is required? Or is that something, why did we increase the hours?
It's not required, but because we've had some incidents in the building where we felt like we needed a guard there, and we've also gotten some threats. So I want my staff to feel safe. That's why we have a guard.
Okay.
Could we just go back a second to the utilities? A quick question is, you mentioned that the gas, or I'm sorry, the oil was going to be less than what you had expected. Where is the oil number in there?
This particular building does not have fuel, home heating oil or heating fuel. They're running off natural gas. You'll see that throughout the buildings we have. Some buildings have natural gas, some just have heating fuel.
So this is just
Heating fuel.
for this building maintenance is just one building.
The set of accounts you're looking at is just for the health department.
Okay.
Which is how many buildings again for health department?
One building.
Just one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, when we get to the libraries, you'll see heating fuel for both the Sono and the main one as an example.
Okay. So
Any
we don't
other-
have any offset here for oil. Okay, fine, good.
Any other questions on building maintenance? All right, so we move to environmental health and housing.
All right, total ask of 4.77% over the 23 approved. No headcount items to discuss on this one. 5.1% on wages and salary, steps and contractual increases. Have you got this one, Lamond, or?
I can take this
Deanna
one.
will take
Okay,
it.
Deanna?
So, it's for our environmental health and housing, component of the health department. As Tom just described, the increase for staffing, and wages. The other professional services, 5258, that's for our mosquito larviciding program. And also money to support our environmental laboratory for water quality testing of the recreational water over the summer. In the past, we used to run our own lab, and we've since made reductions in the lab to not have to, hire our own lab director and lab, hold our own license. So we're transitioning to the state health department, but we also wanted, which is a no cost, to be able to submit our specimens to the state. But we also wanted the ability to be a little flexible, to be able to work with a local lab if needed, if it was something where the state wouldn't be able to turn around the results as fast as we wanted. And so that's why we've budgeted some money to work with to be able to submit some specimens to another lab in the case where we need to get, results from beach testing sooner. So that's what that is. But that's one area we can look at to see if we can make reductions if we want to just work with the state health department's lab and not have that, flexibility.
I would ask, what would be the time impact of working only with the state facility and not our own? What is the impact to our citizens if we do just that?
We might have to close the beaches for a longer period of time. So let's say we're able to get specimens. If we have to do a retest for something and we have to submit it on like a Friday, we might not get those results till like next week. So then the beach might end up being closed for longer, for a couple of days. We haven't had to do it that often, over the summer. We were able to, this past summer is our first time doing this. So we're learning from that experience. So I do think we can reduce that by a few thousand and be okay.
Are we able to contract to some labs that can give you a better turnaround time? For example, I know that Save the Sound has a new water quality lab down in, I think, the Rye area. So if you take a sample, bring it down, have it tested, and then you might be able to have your results pretty quickly.
No, but the point I think, Ann, was they reserved money to do that type of work rather than just relying on the state.
Okay.
The question is, if we leave that money in there, we have that flexibility. If we reduce that and rely on the state, we potentially inconvenience our citizens for a bit longer. Then
I think it's money well spent to make sure that we can keep the beaches open as quickly as possible.
I have two questions. Deanna, could you just explain the 21,005 for mileage reimbursement?
Yeah, I was
And
going
then-
there next.
And then the condemnation. Talk about that.
Yes. So with mileage, none of the health department staff have city vehicles in the past. This is before I, was the director. The city ran an analysis and looked at what it would be to have city vehicles for our 4 sanitarians and our 3 housing inspectors that are out on the field, 5 days a week, all the time. And they said it would be more costly to maintain the city's fleet or to reserve vehicles for them than to have the mileage reimbursement. So a lot of that is for, they're out inspecting restaurants, they're looking at septic systems, salons, doing all the housing.
Yeah.
So
Dan,
that's,
I would just ask that you look at your actuals or your forecasted actuals for this year, because when you go back to FY22, you spent 13.8 in actuals on this. You're budgeting 21.5, which looks like it's simply flat to last year's budget. Let's look at this year's budget. Let's look at this year's actuals and forecast to the end of the year. There might be some savings in there.
Sure, we can look at that again.
And then the condemnation, could you explain that a little bit? I know what it is, but I need to know why it's so high.
Yeah, so as I'm sure many of you are aware, the city is responsible for relocation expenses in the case of a housing situation where a code enforcement official has come in and said it's uninhabitable, it's unsafe for them to be there. And so the relocation program for the city of Norwalk is run out of the health department. And so we work really closely with the building department, with the fire marshal's office and the police department and others. And so in the past, we've been able to keep those costs down, but just last year we had a situation where a building was deemed uninhabitable. It drove up the cost quite a lot. We've had instances in the past, typically you'll get like, heat isn't working. And so the relocation is only for a really short period of time, they're able to fix it. But some of these more complex issues, if there's a fire, that also comes in. So this one's been always challenging to budget for because this one really is outside of our control. We don't know what's going to happen, what's going to cause a place to be uninhabitable. So this year, I have it written down, so far in condemnation, we have spent, sorry, let me just find it. We have spent this fiscal year so far, I think it's about
34,000.
34,000, is it?
Yeah,
Sorry, I was like, I wrote it down. Where is it?
we got to the
34,000.
same number at the same time, 34,000.
Yes. And last year we spent over 100,000. We budgeted, we asked for 50 last year, and then we took it down to 5,000 to find some savings. And so that's why we're asking again for 58,000 again this year, based on we're already at 34,000 this year.
Just one other quick question. I know there's been a lot of talk about illegal apartments. If the fire marshal or an inspector comes across an illegal apartment, are we responsible for if they're being taken out of that apartment? Are we responsible for relocating them?
Yes, if it's deemed for fire purposes, yes. If it's deemed uninhabitable, let's say there's not enough egress, if there's if it's an unsafe situation, if it's an illegal apartment or in a basement apartment where it's not safe, yeah, we are responsible for relocating them.
Just another example, an apartment in the basement, or some other. You've got a 2-family house and there's 4 apartments in there, 4 families, and it's illegal, and we have to relocate them.
Depending on the safety concerns, yes.
Okay.
So if there's no safety concern and it's just a violation because there's a legal apartment there, we're not obligated at that point, are we?
If it's like a zoning issue, right? Like if it's not within zoning, yeah, no, we're not. But if it's like code enforcement, then yes.
Deanna, if it's a code enforcement, do we get reimbursement from the landlord or owner?
That's
We
my
do.
next question.
We do seek reimbursement for those costs. We also, if we're unsuccessful with that, we have the ability to put a lien on the property and get expenses back that way
We
too.
collect? You said we try, but do we collect eventually?
Yes, we do. And sometimes there's an agreement that the city makes too. And that's handled by like the law department and others. But yes, we do collect, we invoice.
So my point is that the 100,000 or the 50,000, it may be a cash flow issue where we might need the money up front, but eventually we should be getting the money back, no?
Yes, that is the goal. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Deanna, I understand you've asked for 50,000 coming into this year. I understand everything you just said about how unpredictable this line item is. But if we look at the 34,000 run rate this year, is there any way we can take that number down to 45,000 again going into FY24?
I think we can. And then this is a situation where if we need the money, we're going to have to go to, we're going to have to ask.
I
for it.
understood, right?
Yeah.
But again, I think for budget optics, if we could budget it at 45, which gives you close to what you'll likely spend this year. Again, every year, every situation is very different. But again, it's another $5,000 we can help offset in our budget.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Other questions on this grouping from Board of Estimate and Tax members?
How about the grants and contributions? We jumped from 15,000 up to 50 and continue 50 through there. What are those? Those are grants that we're giving out?
So this is towards our eviction services. It includes the moving and storage costs. So that's another thing handled under the health department is eviction services. So after COVID or during COVID, those costs have been low because there haven't been, as many evictions. But in prior years, in FY 2019, these costs were 55,000. In FY 2018, they were about 41,000. In FY 2017, they were 53,000. So that's why we kept the increase at 50 because prior to COVID, some of those those costs were at the higher end.
So where are we year to date,
This fiscal year, typically, I think we're only about 1,100, but typically a lot of those bills come in towards the end of the fiscal year. So I'd have to check in because this is related to when but I can check in again to get a more accurate to see if any of those invoices are outstanding. Carla, do you have any other information?
Is that actual funds that we're giving to people that have been evicted, or is it to a support organization?
It's to cover the storage costs and the moving costs to a moving and storage company to support that. So it's not like it's not a direct money towards people.
And again, presumably some of this is reimbursed by the landlord. And if so, as you look at your accounts, can you give us a report? Doesn't have to be now, but what of these expenses are reimbursable and how much has been reimbursed?
Sure, I'll make a note of that to get that to you.
Thank you.
But I'm just thinking, if you only have $1,100 year to date, we're 2/3 through the year. That's you're not going to hit 50. And then, we haven't had, I would think that 50 might be kind of generous, but given the historical nature of this, that maybe we have to stick with 50, but maybe could we shave 10 grand off that?
Or can we go back to the 15,000 that they spent in 2022?
Again, if you look at some of the numbers Deanna said about a few year averages, I think 22 was a little bit low. But I think Jim's question to you, Deanna, is fair. Is there savings in that number? Based on what you're seeing across not only this year, FY22, years prior to that, I think it's legitimate. And our challenge to you, to Jim's point, would be, is there potentially, can we bring that number down by about 10K?
I can definitely take a closer look at that and see. Yeah, I can see us shaving some money here probably. But I'll talk to my team and then I'll get back to you guys.
Deanna, is this a state requirement?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, it is.
How long a period of time are we required to reimburse people who are evicted? Is it 3 months? Is it 12 months? Is there no limit?
For the eviction or for the relocation?
Well, you're talking about this grant. You said it's for moving and storage costs. So the question is this unlimited or are there some guidelines?
There are guidelines for, how we have to post the for how long we have to store it for and post notice that we're gonna remove the, we're no longer gonna hold it. So yeah, there are requirements and spelled out within the program.
I see. Thank you.
Do we, just curious, do we auction off the belongings if they don't pick it up in, let's say, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the date is?
Yes, that's handled by the moving and storage company.
But do we get some of that money back? Because we're paying the moving and storage company.
No, I don't believe we do.
Anything else on this grouping of line items?
No.
All right, then let's move to weights and measures, please.
What do we have for this one, Lamond? 2.89% over 23 approved. Looks like likely one full-time employee and 5110, the wages and salaries.
This is still all healthy at weights and measures.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
still me.
sorry. I should start with
Sorry,
you,
everybody.
Deanna, not
Yeah,
Lamond.
she has
I
a lot of
apologize.
departments under here.
So this is another state mandated service, a sealer of weights and measures. If you're a city over a certain population size, you have to have that. And this has been in other departments in the past, but it's been in the health department for decades. And so this is the person that goes around and makes sure the gas pumps are giving you what you're paying for, and making sure the scales are measuring what they should be and you're paying, for what you're paying for. So this is for, like some of the supplies here are related to, those labels that you see at the gas pumps, those stickers, that's an example of.
We cover all of that.
Questions from anybody on the board about weights and measures here?
Is there any permitting fees or any fees, or is it just a service that we do for the public, which is a good service?
It
So
is a
there's-
service for the public, but we do bring in revenue for this too. We do.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you could let us know what that revenue looks like, would be great.
Sure. Yes, I have it in a spreadsheet somewhere.
Okay, thank you. All right, shall we move to community health, please?
This is
Yeah.
also me.
So, Deanna, one of my first questions when I look at the regular salary line is it's jumped hugely from FY22 actuals. Can you speak to that and why it is so much above for FY24 as well?
So we've also, some of the staff, when we budgeted, we had them in different divisions, so we've moved them. So we added an assistant director of health for community health. And so that position is now under this division. And then we also have our health educator. So there's like 2 people in here, whereas one of them had been in another line item before.
Okay,
So now this is 2 people instead of 1 person.
Correct.
and was it 2 people throughout FY23? Did we make that move in FY22?
This was one of the positions that had gotten added during the look at the city budget during the early retirement. So that position got added and has been staffed, this whole year. I believe 2021 in the spring is when that position was officially hired for.
But that seems like a lot of money, $239,000. And when you had only 1 person, it was only 71,000.
Oh,
I
we
think there's
actually-
3
we had-
people in there, right, Deanna? Isn't there 3 people in there?
There's 2 in there,
Okay.
but I think what was probably the vacancy, right? So one of our current members was in this division and got promoted, and then we had a vacancy for her other position. So by the time it took to fill it, so I think that's what this is. Is there some point of here that it was vacant? So that's why it's only showing 71.
So does that mean there was nobody in the department for a portion of FY22?
The assistant director of health was here for the whole year and she was getting paid out of another division, and the health educator position, I believe, came in under the fall of last
Okay.
year.
Okay.
What was the other division?
Administration, health admin.
So if anything, we'd see like the difference taken out of administration.
But then we added the epidemiologist, so I feel like I need to give a chart or something. It shows like we didn't move a lot of people around. It's hard to.
Well, how about, let's try to make it simple. In community service, what is the head count increase, decrease?
You have that for the health department?
Yeah,
For the health department, we're not, for this for this request for this budget versus our current budget that we're in right now, we're not asking for any additional staff members.
No, I meant for all of community services, all community service. Lamont, you could.
Yeah, so nothing from who,
Tom, you could probably answer that.
yeah, Tom,
Yeah,
you
no, I've
probably
got
have
the
that more than I don't have. I got a whole
I've got
bunch
the
of papers
summary
in front
chart
of me.
here, and I've got 54 approved heads for all of community services. That includes the library. We already talked the other night with youth services about the care coordinator.
Yeah.
They had one ask there, and coming up a little bit later, we'll be talking about 2 more asks on the library side.
Okay.
For the entire department.
Correct. So you're at 51 approved right now, Lamont.
So
And
I'm
you
just,
wanna go to-
I'm just trying to get away from the noise of, well, we had one person or half a person for half a year and 2 other people for 3/4 of a year, et cetera, all the way across. I'm just saying that we've got 2 heads in there at 200 or 110 apiece or 115 apiece, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for community health? All right, shall we move to the health laboratory?
I'm guessing this one is you again as well.
Oh, Deanna.
Okay, so I mentioned we made some reductions over the years in the laboratory. That you see that staff member, we've moved that to a different division, but so we right now we have a part-timer that's funded through here to support our lab services. And then the other items are related to supplies, and I do think there are a few that we can cut. So over the years, we have been cutting a lot of these supply line items. And I think we can continue to cut them. So I can look back and get you new numbers for 0120, 5258. I think we can probably zero that out. I think also 5329 other operating supplies, we can probably cut that as well.
Okay, if you would look at both of those, we'd appreciate it and confirm it back.
And what are the health laboratory services provided?
We this supports our sexual health clinic. So there's a lot of specimen collection, and we submit tests to the state health department lab for the sexual health clinic. And this also supports the water testing I mentioned before about for the beach water quality monitoring.
Anything else? All right, next section, I hope will be very easy. The senior services coordinator, since it's zeros across the board. Any questions, comments there?
And that's only there because of some actuals history. I've hid the columns going back to 2019, but there's nothing in there now. There's no request. We can move on.
That is correct.
I figured as much, just looking for a moment of levity here, Tom, that's all.
Oh,
Right.
I could speak to that. That is correct.
I'd also like to add that used to be under the health department. So thank you, Lamont, for now being for the city.
All right, our moment of levity is gone. Preventable diseases, please.
Okay. So the increase for the full-time here, and we're proposing reducing the part-time line item here because we would like to transition our full-time public health nurse to a full-time nurse practitioner and to support our clinical services to be able to operate at a much higher capacity. So it's not increasing, the benefits or anything. It's keeping same headcount, but it's just changing the job title and that position description. But by doing that, we can reduce some of the requirements for part-time support to operate our clinics. And for those unfamiliar with our clinics, I mentioned our sexual health clinic. We also do tuberculosis control services. We do latent TB and treatment. We do, active monitoring of active TB cases. We have adult immunizations. We have travel. We have a travel immunization clinic that brings in revenue to the city. So we have a lot of clinical services, and they cover a lot with the staffing. So it's a combination of, full-time and part-time staff members.
How prevalent is tuberculosis in Norwalk?
So we usually have, it can vary every year, but we have a few cases typically every year of TB, but we also have a lot of latent TB. We partner with some of our AmeriCares and others who identify those with latent TB infections. So for those with latent TB, a certain percentage of them, if it goes untreated, will develop active TB. And so it's been a great partnership for those that are uninsured, don't have access, to be able to provide that and to prevent them from becoming, fully infectious.
Mhm.
Are those services provided out of the health department building, City Hall, or is it out of the community center up on Westport Avenue?
We have clinics at the health department.
Okay. And what is
Dan,
the,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
What is the line item 5322, the chemical lab and medical supplies, which have gone from 60,000 to over 127,000?
Sure. So in the past, we are getting back to our clinical services. So this was a line item where our some of the cost would be 140, 130, 120, depending on the year, to purchase we use this to purchase vaccines. And so we had to put a pause to a lot of our clinical services during the pandemic because we're focused on COVID and COVID vaccination. And so that's why there was that reduction last year. But we're continuing we're booking more people for travel and adult immunization.
And what's your actuals to date this year on that line item?
Let me pull that up.
Actuals are about 65,000.
I would submit that this number looks a little high. I'm also concerned, quite honestly, Rose, 168 through 173. Again, it looks like all we've done here is take the FY23 approved and plopped it into FY24 again. So to the point Ann made earlier and that we've all made earlier, I would look at our actuals year to date and our forecast and take a zero-based approach to all of those line items, please. I mean, if you're at 67 as a run rate right now on that line item as an example, you're not going to get to $127,000 this year. And it provides us an opportunity to likely take that number down for FY24.
And I would also add, if you can put in your revenue numbers, because I think that would be helpful, because I suspect those costs are offset by fees and revenues.
Will do.
Okay, but I would expect these 4 rows here, 69 through 173, to come down.
Tom, I know that we're going to, at a later date, we're going to go through all the revenues. Would it be possible to jump in and take a look at the revenue associated with some of these departments as we're going through on the expense side?
Your timing is perfect. I actually ran a revenue report for Vanessa, who's coming up next. But I don't have the a recent community services run handy just now. So,
and I'm thinking if for the next, maybe the next 2 meetings that we have, we could take a look at that.
okay, yeah. Well, tomorrow night is us finance. I can easily have that ready for you.
Yep. Thank you, Tom. And then maybe, Tom, for the departments we haven't covered, maybe if we can do that in our meeting Monday next week,
Sure.
when it's just us. All right. Anything else for preventable disease?
I would like to say that the health department for travel immunization does a terrific job. My daughter is in Indonesia, and I can attest she's had all her shots from the health department. It's the only place she could have gotten it. And I'm looking at a $700 bill to pay for the immunizations that were not covered by our health insurance. So there is definitely reimbursement.
Great. Thank you, Ann. And again, thank you, Deanna. If you tell me that you're going to cover the library, I'm going to leave this meeting.
No, I think you're done with me. If you're ready to be-
No, she's not gonna cover library.
All right.
She's more than welcome to.
Sorry, Cheryl.
All right, thank you, Deanna.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Deanna.
Thank you.
All right, on to the library. There are two headcount items to discuss on this one that Sherelle can address. Overall, for the library, you can see they were flat on administration and programs, up about 9% on the main library, and about 6.5% on the SONA. We break the main branches out from the admin. So Sherelle, if you are ready, you are welcome to take it away.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be before you this evening. I hope the outcome will be great. I want to begin by letting you know that the library did aggressively look at all of our budgets, what we spent in previous years. And in an effort to be fiscally responsible, we did reduce many areas, one being postage, printing, grounds, other repair and maintenance, machinery, rental, agricultural supplies, and electrical supplies. And that total was roughly 26,000. We knew we would be asking for personnel and for an increase in our book budget, so we wanted to be fiscally responsible. Additionally, there's a line where we were getting the fees from passport service. We had to stop passport service during COVID, but we're looking to reinstate it this spring. And that will be an additional 35,000. And that was just based on what revenue we earned in the past. So we just want to let you know that we were trying to be team players and to be fiscally responsible. So there were some asks, two of which were in personnel. One is a full-time custodian. We did have 3 custodians pre-COVID. One of them took the early retirement, and that left us with 2 custodians. And that was fine when we were closed. But at present, we have 2 buildings to cover. We've since reopened fully. We've added 4 evenings, and we've also added Sundays. So that was why we requested the 3rd custodian at the amount of $57,150. And we also requested a full-time marketing and communications coordinator at $65,346. And that was basically to relieve our librarians from having to do the communications, reaching out to the press, doing press releases and active, campaigns for library programs and happenings. Also, per the efficiency study, we wanted to make both libraries become one. So we would like for all of our designs and different things to have one person doing it and just have the library under one banner. And at present, it's taking away from things that, the full-time librarians and part-time librarians could be doing, like planning programs and serving the public.
Jeff, one question for you regarding the part-time. Now that you have 2 additional full-time, would you be taking that line down 5140? I know it jumped from 553,000 up to the 821,000. And obviously these numbers are a little consistent year to year also. Might want
Mhm.
to take another look at that. But does that affect the part-time position there?
So we
Why?
can look at that. I wasn't sure because if we're not granted the marketing person, we would consider hiring someone full-time. I'm sorry, part-time.
So are you saying you don't need that part-time person there or on that line or?
No, we do need the part-time. You're talking about the full part-time budget. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you.
Yeah, since you hired two full-time people, I'm just wondering whether you might want to take down your part-time line.
These people were not hired. These are people that we've had. So pre-COVID, we had 3 custodians.
Right.
We had 3 full-time custodians. One of them took the early retirement which left us with 2. So we
Right.
didn't hire anyone additionally. We're looking to hire that 3rd custodian. Now that we're open fully, we have, we've added the evenings and we've also added Sundays. So we're open 7 days a week, not 5 days a week. So that's why we're asking for that additional. So we have not hired 2 new people. We're asking to hire 1 person.
Right, so Sherelle, I guess if I understand you, your asks for the custodian and the marketing
Marketing, yeah.
individual are included in the $2 million regular salary line.
It was not funded from my understanding or from what I can see, it was not funded. There was.
Tom, it's not in here, is it?
No, that's correct. I can speak to this. So there's the ask, the 2.1 million.
Right.
That includes the coordinator, the communications coordinator, and the custodian. Here's the CFO and mayor recommendation of 2 million for,
Right.
which were not approved at the time. So the discussion at this point is whether to reinstate, as we have with others, or leave as is.
Well, and again, if you were to get that head count,
For sure.
what does that bring your part-time number down to? Because what I thought I heard you say, and I'm sorry if this sounds more accusatory
It's okay.
than it is intended, but what I thought I heard you say is in that you have in that part-time today, someone who's doing some of that communications work, you could take that number down if you
We
got the
know.
head count.
We do not have that person yet, but I'm thinking if if the position is not funded as a full-time, we may consider, if it's within the budget, the part-time budget, to hire someone part-time.
And that would be within your 821 number?
We'll try, we'll see. We're not sure how many hours we'd be able to give the person, but yes.
Well, being a marketer by professional trade, I would recommend that we start it from a part-time perspective and start to look at what we're getting from an ROI point of view. And then if we see success in that role going into FY25, we can look to elevate it from part-time to full-time.
Right. So does that mean you're gonna give me an increase in the part-time budget?
No, you just said that you've got it in that 821.
We'll try, is what I said, but we'll try.
Okay.
But I respectfully ask that we consider reinstating the ask for the custodian, and I'll give you an example. Just last week, one of the custodians was out sick, and one of them had a procedure. So basically, I was opening the building, but the 3rd person will also help, like when we have vacations, illness, obviously. Personal time, we need that 3rd person, just because we have 2 buildings, 7 days a week, not 5 days, evenings and also Sundays.
And so what, if it was just the custodial cost, what's the incremental headcount cost?
So that would be 57,150. And that was based on their union. It would be starting at the first step.
And is it just
That including
coincidence that
benefits?
that's the same number as the overtime number that's in there today?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
It just sounds, is it a coincidence that that's the same number that's in there for overtime today?
I don't think so. The overtime, we have two lines, but overtime, that's our Sunday budget. Because Sundays are not mandatory. Sundays, people can choose not to work Sundays, so Sundays are time and a half. And so it's in the overtime budget.
So it is a coincidence, okay.
Yeah, so, and it's slightly off, 57,150 for the custodian salary, 57,156 for overtime. It's,
And Tom, is that including benefits on that 57,000 salary?
no, benefits go lower down in the employee benefits section, so.
Can that, if there was to be a third custodian, can that custodian be from either a service or a contract worker, 1099?
Contractually and I'm sorry, union, I'm not sure that we can do that.
Oh, you mean if we have another custodian, it has to be someone who is from a union or joins the union?
That's my understanding. I can clarify, but the other two are unionized.
Is there a service that you can use from the outside to help?
We can look into that, but again, union wise, I'm not sure that we can do that. If that would be a union issue.
If these are all union employees, is it possible to get, when somebody is out for a procedure or is out sick or whatever, can the union provide another maintenance person?
I hadn't thought of that. We could always ask, but I'm not sure if that would be taking away from, the duties that they would need in another department.
No, well,
But
obviously.
all good questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like, the job is getting done somehow or other right now without this additional head. And whether we do it in,
There are times
depending on
that we're
where-
not covered. There are times that buildings are not, we may have 3 or, 4-hour gaps. And that basically happened when we began opening the evenings.
Right. So,
And
Cheryl,
just one, excuse me, one
Go ahead,
other
Jim.
question. It looks like how many, do you know off the top of your head, how many part-time workers we have?
So I would, if I had to guess, I'd say roughly 40.
Is there any way that we can schedule people on Sundays without having to pay them overtime? In other words, if they worked 30 hours a week, then you don't have to pay them overtime if they work on a Sunday.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Again, you said it was all voluntary anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. If they volunteer to work Sundays, it used to be actually time and a half, and it was double time. And it's been lowered to time and a half.
Well, I guess my question is that with that many part-timers, how many hours do they work? They work less than 40 hours, I expect, probably around 30 hours.
39.
Can't we schedule them to work on Sundays and Saturdays? That's part of the job. Maybe we rotate them. Maybe once a month they work on a Sunday, but they'll get Monday and Tuesday, whatever it is.
With the part-timers, and it depends on, we can't force them to work because it's optional. So.
Yeah, right. Of course, you can't force anybody to work, but the job description would be you work 5 days a week, and occasionally, if you got 40 people, that means every week 10 people may have to work on a Sunday every month, and you rotate it. That's part of the job.
For the part-time, that's a consideration.
Yeah. Then we don't have to do any headcount increase.
Well, for everybody is not a custodian though, if we're talking about custodians.
No, I'm not talking about just custodians. I'm talking about, custodians. Maybe we go to the union and get a substitute that comes in. Maybe we get a part-time custodian from the union that comes in, only on Sundays. Any number, I'm trying to be a little open-minded about how we go about doing some of the things that we do. In order to cut some of our, not necessarily even cut expenses, but to contain expenses.
Right. And Cheryl, I'd also ask you to do a little bit more work here, right? And first up, I recognize and I applaud how fiscally responsible you all have been from a library perspective overall and bottom line, right? But I'm going to ask you to think about some other things, right? And I'm just glancing at various line items that may free up additional dollars for us, right? When you look at row 184, 5233, newspaper subscriptions, and FY22, our actuals were 13.2, yet we're asking for 35 this year, which is flat to this year's budget. What's this year's actual? Is there savings in there? Similarly, our subscription tax and law, you look at 134 is actuals going to 151. What's the actuals this year? Are there savings in there, right? Each one of those little line items, and there are more and more throughout the budget, present an opportunity to lower expenses there and help us find the $57,000.
I can go back and comb the budget again.
Right, but I worry because some of these big items, it's just, well, there was 151 that we planned for last year, so let's plan for 151 again, versus what are our actuals this year, and let's plan 24 off of this year's actuals.
Got it. So we did try to do that in some
In some cases, I see that. And some of the bigger line items, though, I don't see that. And if you're asking for $57,000 more, meet us in the middle by going through some of these line items, please.
I can certainly try. Thank you.
I noticed two line items that I just haven't seen before. One being 5323 food, and the other consumable tools and hardware 5341. Just curious to see what is the 8160 for food? What does that entail?
So food, when we have, large events, we sometimes cater those events. We pay for water, if we're having people, we try to have bottled water or, something that we can serve people. And that's across 4 or 5 departments.
Okay. I understand that in 22, the actual was because of COVID, but could it be possible to save that by maybe 1,000 or so?
Sure. We can definitely look at that.
Yeah, but again, I'd look at every single one of the line items, Cheryl. And I know you have, right? I know you have, but one more hard look, please.
For sure.
Okay.
Other questions on library administration and programs?
Yeah, it brings you to that books line also, if we're still on the books line, line 5392. It's 200 and once again, very consistent every year at the same number, 235,800. I would take a look, just like Ed said, take a look at that number. I don't know where you are. Just, to the penny every year. It's kind of odd.
So I do want to mention something. We did ask for a $60,000 increase for pre-processing because, again, we're opening, people are coming back and using the library differently. So what we want to do is have items come over already cataloged and already processed, and that should reduce our need, for more full-time staff. Prior to COVID, that particular job, and it's called our technical services department, it required 3 full-time library assistants and 1 part-time library assistant and 1 part-time clerk. Right now, we're down to a supervisor, 1 full-time person, and this is due to retirement and also, with people who moved. So we did ask for an increase. So I did look at the actuals, you know, and what we spent and what we asked for, but there's some variables there. Prior to COVID, we were ordering more downloadable materials and more AV materials. But now that we're fully open and people are not, you know, as afraid to come into the library because of COVID, we do need time to look at that, to see how people are using the library. For instance, for 2 years, we did not have a summer reading program, which we partner with the school system. This year will be the first year we're starting that again, and we order multiple books that are on the reading list. So there are some things that we, you know, we didn't spend, but this year is going to be a little bit different. So we just ask for your patience in this as we see how people are using the library.
Okay.
Cheryl,
Other
I
questions?
have one more question. Is AV equipment, is that new equipment or is that, what is that?
That's mainly like our DVDs. So audio visual.
That's not in, that says equipment though. A DVD is not equipment. That should be part of your books, I would think.
Nope, they're two separate budgets.
So it's not equipment.
Which line, where are you?
It's 5391.
Yeah, on the screen, Cheryl, I have it highlighted.
Right above the books.
Hold on, I have to, let me maximize my screen again, hold on. Oh gosh, hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, it's not equipment, that's just what it's called. And I guess some of these could actually use different titles. So it's not equipment, that's our audio visual.
And what an audio visual you're saying is a DVD?
It's DVDs and any other related DVDs, music, yeah,
It's content, yes?
for sure, yes.
Don't you also get rental income from the rest, the little cafe there now?
That was that contract was signed between the city and the Blue Teapot, not with the library.
Okay.
Yeah, Troy, it's the same guys that run the, never mind.
Yeah, don't make that joke. Don't make that joke.
No, no.
Too soon, too soon.
But do keep in mind, we will hopefully be bringing in 35,000 once we reinstate the passport service.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great, you should take all your advertising dollars, that full $1,000 and advertise that.
All right, so we move to the main library maintenance expense items?
And is Neil?
This is our friend Neil.
I am,
Hi, Neil.
I am here.
Welcome back, Neil.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
So the first library up is the main library electric. We're maintaining it flat there. We do a lot of energy savings projects, and we feel we didn't need an increase in the electric over there. That with what we're doing, we're going to try to lower the cost versus have any added expenses this coming year.
Neil, that's another one that I'd love to really understand what our actuals year to date and our forecast for 23 are, because you look at the FY22 actuals and it's significantly below that number. Everything's gotten more expensive. I get that, but
yeah, some of our numbers are going to be skewed simply because of occupants, right? They're slow rolling up. We try to keep very tight on our budgets. We're always doing energy projects, lighting projects, new BMS system for both buildings. So we hope that we continue to drive down our costs, even though the commodities are going up quite a bit. We feel like we're doing a pretty good service there. So, but we'll definitely look at everything one more time.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And when I say that, because of the way your department works, you'll look at it across buildings across every single department, yeah?
For the most part, as far as the city buildings go, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so Neil, just for clarification, we talked earlier about the heating fuels
Yep.
with a 100% increase. We're seeing that right there.
Yeah, and that's gonna lower down to 58%.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll redo all your numbers.
We will redo all our numbers.
Okay.
And again, we'll look to see if we can tighten up anything on utilities. I don't think we're gonna see much here, but we'll definitely give another look at it.
Okay.
The next, so we talked about heating, fuels, buildings. That's our contractual, our expense of our guardian maintenance. That's a salary number there that cannot be changed.
Okay.
Plumbing, heating, electric. This is something we use every year, right? For costs that we know we may be hitting, some stuff, unforeseen stuff that we'll see. As far as plumbing, that goes from drain cleaning to replacing fixtures to replacing circuits or adding circuits within the libraries as they see needed.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that item?
I have a question. Are there any like agreements made with suppliers or who you buy the equipment from just to maybe get a cheaper price?
We shop everything around. So we unless it's an emergency, we don't go to one provider per se. We're always shopping, whether it's lighting, whether it's plumbing fixtures, whether it's electrical supplies. We're always shopping that around. You know, we have a couple, I don't want to say national accounts, but we definitely have regional accounts that we try to get economies of scale on. So yeah, we're always shopping. It could be a $50 part. We're always shopping it.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be something you're open to, just to kind of cut costs and the price of replacing tools or materials you use?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Would you be open to like sticking with a supplier that agrees to sell you sells you products at a discount?
We're always looking for discounted products, whether it be tools, whether it be services that we're constantly going out to bid on different services. We're going out to bid very shortly on fire inspection, monitoring services. So we're always trying to get the best service for the best price. And we just recently signed up for Amazon Business to purchasing, which opens up another avenue to allow us to shop for parts and materials.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Neil on either the main library maintenance or the Sono library maintenance? All right, so Neil, you'll work with Tom and get us revised numbers as we need them.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
We should have something by tomorrow for him.
Okay. Any other questions on community service whatsoever before we move to Public Works?
Lamont's smiling. Let me go.
Lamont team, thank you. I know this has been
Thank you,
painful,
Noel.
but we're
Thank you,
trying to do
Commissioners.
the best we can.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, I see a room full of folks in Public Works and Rec and Parks. Just to give you the summary view, I've separated ops and Public Works from Rec and Parks, but I wanted to give you the percentage total for Vanessa's entire world. Right now, it is at 9.27% between the two large areas. But if we scroll down just to the bottom of the operations and Public Works side, you can see that it is 10.28%. And then we will get to the Rec and Parks later. And that is 4.83% down here. So we will go back up to the operations and Public Works. I believe we do have one headcount item for discussion. And that would be in the engineering department for a senior permit engineer, which is thus far has survived through the CFO and mayor recommendations. So Vanessa, if you want to take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to introduce who is here with me. I have Jim Meehan. He is the new principal engineer. He started last week. So I'm gonna still go over all the engineering items. You guys already know Rob Stowers. He's the director of Rex and Parks. I have Chris Storr. He's in charge of the operations, and with him also Darlene Bird, that she helped us put all the budget for the operations together. On the Zoom call, I have Neil, that you guys already had the pleasure to talk to him about all the utilities and the buildings, and also Ken Hughes from Rex and Parks. So I'll go over my head count first, but if you want, we already have some money to give back, so I can start with that if you guys want it, and then if you have further questions, I can go through each item. So Chairman, I'll do whatever you prefer.
Yeah, so Vanessa, yes, let's start with the good news of the money you want to give back, and then we can go through head count and some of the questions that the board has.
Yeah.
Okay, so we hear that you guys are trying to see any penny that we can save. So we went through our list compared to what we have spent in the past few years, and we try to reduce few things. So we have small items, but we do have a big item, and I'll explain to it. So I'll go, our first session is the 14010. We'll go to item, the object 521111, postage box rent. I'm sorry, the one below actually, 5221, printing and duplication. So we are asking for 8,524. We know that now a lot of the bids and everything, we are not printing as much. We're gonna cut that to only 5,000.
Okay.
Next page, when we go to org 14021, object 5216, other communication and trend. 504, we don't need that.
Okay.
Now the best one, org 14025, object 5322. Our ops is no ice removal chemical lab. We asked for $400,000. We just won $200,000 now. And we can explain the reason. It is usually the salt. Due to the very good winter that we had this year, and considering that we are not going to get such a bad storm tomorrow, we should have enough salt that we don't need to replenish as much as expected. So that's why the cut. We are just considering half of what we usually would need.
Okay.
We only a save of 50,000 because the recommendation was 250.
250. Right. Right. It's still it's
Not a $200,000 save.
Yep. Still a savings, so thank you. And Vanessa, we'll go through all of the detail, but what strikes
I have
me.
one more.
Go ahead.
So 14042, bottom of the other page, object 5262. It's $10,000 for other machinery equipment. We can go to 5,000.
I'm sorry, Vanessa, I missed the org ID on that, please.
14042. Disposal.
Right here? The other machine,
Yes, yeah, 5,000.
okay.
Thank you, Vanessa and team. That's
One
very
more,
good.
one more,
All
one
right, all right. Keep going.
14045. 5419, other. We can zero that one.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. So again, thank you. It's a good start. Appreciate it. I will tell you my overall concern, and I would ask you, just as we've asked every other department, if you look at the majority of line items across all of the org areas, it looks for the most part as if, and I am generalizing, but in many, many cases, it looks as if all we have done is taken the FY '23 approved number and used it as our request and our recommended for FY '24. Given where we are as a city on overall expense, we as a board are asking you all to look for every single line item at what your FY '23 actuals to date and forecast will be, to see if there are further reductions in those line items versus just taking last year and using the same number. Another way to say that, and Anne has said it many times, is to take a zero-based budgeting approach to every single line item. Justify every single expense in that. But there are so many different line items here that are just, looks like a rinse and repeat, that we would challenge you on every single one of them. So rather than going through every single one of them, know any place where you have picked up the FY '23 approved and used it for your FY '24 plan. We want that reevaluated and justified, please.
We'll take a second look on it. We most of them we looked when we submitted the budget, because we were concerned that the number wasn't gonna be enough, and that's why we ended up carrying over the same number, because we understood the recommendation to try to keep a very flat budget for this year. But Mr. Chairman, we're gonna take a second look. I'll ask all the head of the divisions to go back one more time to see if there is any further reduction, but we already looked at it before this meeting, and that's why we could come up with those cuts.
Understood, but optically, it seems very strange that every single budget would be exactly to what FY '23 approved was.
Understood.
Okay.
I just have a question on the item. If you're gonna take down, obviously, we didn't get a lot of snow this year, 2 inch, whatever, 2 inches. Would you also take down the overtime line? That's 14,025,5120 salary overtime. It's at 275,000. Is that a number you could take down?
We don't wanna move on that one, because what happened is the salt is something that we already have in our stock. So what we have used and how much we need to replenish allow us to go through those savings. So even if we get a busy snow season next year, we're probably gonna be able to get around with the amount of salt that we have, plus this extra that we're gonna need to buy with the $200,000. But we are concerned of doing that with the overtime for this year. But at the same time, saying that, we're gonna probably come back to you guys in a separate meeting to use the overtime for this year into a different area, and maybe towards the end of the year, if there is any left over, we'll go back to your funds. But we're concerned of moving on to the FY '24.
We're still in winter.
Understood. Understood. It's just, again, this next fiscal cycle is not one where we're looking to have departments sit on money for what if situations, and I'm not suggesting you're doing that, and then returning money to the general fund balance at the end of the year. We're really looking to make sure that we are stripping down our budget requests as much as possible and as realistically as possible, and then using the contingency process to fund unexpected increases. Because again, the fund balance is great and contributing to it is terrific, but it doesn't help us on the front end in terms of the burden to the taxpayer.
Respectfully, Chair, we've had more than 2 inches of snow. And
Understood.
we've also had several events that we've had to deploy people for overtime and drop salt on the road. If you'd like a itemized list of every storm we've had this year, I'd be happy to provide that to the.
No, and I don't think we're challenging you on what is legitimate expense. And we understand that. And I understand very clearly your point on the overtime there. just in general, we're asking everybody to be as constrained as possible with their thoughts and estimates. So I fully understand there have been many more instances than the small amount of snow we've had. And we still have 6 to 8 weeks of who the heck knows what weather will bring us. So I understand that point.
Thank you, sir.
Vanessa, do you want to touch on the disposal issue?
Yes.
To the board, you'll note that their percentage year over year is
huge.
Is a little bit out of line, but they're hamstrung by some contracts that Vanessa can address.
Yes, so unfortunately, what is showing this increase under the Public Works budget this year is really the extension of the contract with the garbage collection. And that was the biggest increase that we see. So the reason we have a contract that will expire in June 30th, and we were able to ask for an extension of this contract for 1 year because we realized that we wouldn't have enough time to put out a bid, considering that we want to really try to revamp how we are collecting garbage in the city. So we went back to our contractor and negotiated an extension of the contract with him for 1 year. Unfortunately, due to the recycling market that Asia, due to COVID and all the closures, we are seeing a big impact in our budget because of that. So what is happening is that before we used to get a flat fee for the recycle as a profit, and now they are not selling that anymore. So what happened is that the only way that we could get the extension was to get, we are paying now a flat fee to get that disposed, but with a profit that will be an average of 80% of what they can sell. So in case the market opens, that there is a really good indication that it may, we're gonna get 80% of whatever will be the market value. So that's what we are carrying on, those numbers. And of course, the disposal of garbage has its increase by the contract annual value that I believe that was about 3.75%, something like that, that is affecting on it. But really the main driver on the increase on cost was due to the recycle. And that's what our budget is affecting. Now, on the other hand, our team is trying to find solutions to see if we can take less of the garbage out of our stream system. So we're trying to come up with some partnership ideas where other companies will come and start collecting things out of our system before we have to pay to take it out. So although this is the contract numbers that we have to have in our budget, we hope that we'll be able to decrease a little bit that if we can get those initiatives going.
Sustainability is our key here, taking textiles, taking food composting, taking as much as we can out of the municipal garbage stream, hence the collection. The city has some big decisions to make, whether we go with automated garbage collection, where we just get one toter for garbage and one toter for recycling and go from there, or we continue to pick up just the Fort Taxing District, or we pick up the whole city. So that's hence the 1 year to just do the best we can, getting the best service we can moving forward.
Okay. And did you want to talk about the incremental headcount in engineering?
Yes, so this position was actually was brought up under the, oh my God, what is the name of this study? The efficiency. Thank you, the efficiency study. So the efficiency study pointed out that we should, depending on the number of plan reviews that we're getting, that we could add another permit person. Just to give you guys some numbers, in 2021, we issued 640 permits. And then in 2022, we issued 720. It's a 18% increase. So what we are requiring here is to add a senior permit engineer position. So what the idea of that is that we have also one person that will have an opportunity for a person to, even from the outside or even internally, to move into that position that will have a PE. What is very important about this position is that the person oversees all the drainage calculations for every single plan review that we receive. So that's why it has to be a senior position, so with a PE title. We do have a permit engineer today that does have a PE license, but it's not required on his position, and we know that it would be better if there is some room for improvement throughout the permit division for that. Now, this position, again, all the permits we charge for that, so there is also a revenue account associated to it. We do have a timeline when we review all the plan reviews that we should have an answer or comments back in 2 weeks. Also have a professional person in that position help us highlight if there is any drainage issues, because if we try with our new drainage manual that we started in 2017, we do not allow any runoffs to the city systems because we're trying to reduce flooding, right? So pretty much if you are adding an extension to your house, if you're doing any changes to your driveway, you have to submit those calculations. So that person is the one that is revising that, reviewing that, and then approving. So that's why we're trying to add that position to help deal with all the permits that we do. So this is the only headcount that we added, and also the efficiency study flag that we will need another person under permits.
Okay. Additional questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, I had a question about road markings and materials. It looked like it doubled.
Yes, thank you so much,
Sorry, Kendrick,
for
what?
putting that out. This is a very good initiative that Public Works is doing with the Board of Ed. So the Board of Ed approached us last year to ask if we could help with striping their parking lots to refresh the paint there. So we said, yes, we can do that, but you guys have to help us with the cost. So the deal that we did with them is we buy the material and they pay for the labor, meaning most of the times we use our guys after hours, or most of the times on a Saturday when those parking lots are empty. So that's why it has to be overtime. So they take care of the overtime of the guys and we buy the material and supply. So that 50% is to buy the material so we can this year finalize striping the parking lots for the Board of Ed.
The paint is very expensive now. It's up like 35% from a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, for the water-based marking paint, just so you guys know.
And it's cheaper to do this way in-house than to sub it out.
So let me just understand something. You said that we pay for the paint and they pay the overtime. But
Yes.
we would still pay the regular time. So the only thing that they're having to pay for is the overtime?
Yeah, but they are all overtime when they report to work, because usually we do the work on a Saturdays.
Right, right.
So
Any idea?
We don't have the staff, sir, to pull off the paint crews that are striping the crosswalks and the stop bars to
Yeah.
do the schools. So we kind of, through Vanessa and the mayor's office and Dr. Estrella, agreed that we would buy the Franklin paint into the yellow, do the handicap spots, and the white. If you drive through Norwalk High, all of those spots at Norwalk High, the student numbered parking and the staff parking was all done by Public Works last year. And that was kind of like a pilot program for doing the schools.
Yeah, okay, but my point is that the Board of Ed is only having to pay the overtime portion, whereas we're paying the regular hours for drivers, painters, whatever, plus the paint.
They're not gonna work on regular time, they're only working.
Correct.
overtime.
No, I
No,
understand.
if they were
So
paying
you
them to
got-
do it Monday through
Yes.
Friday, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
We
so
do
you got
pay-
regular,
they are
you
part of
pay them
our staff.
their regular wages plus your overtime wages, but the overtime wages are the only thing that the Board of Ed gets billed for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
sir.
fine.
Yeah,
Just
and
just a
the-
clarification, please. I understand Jim's point, but are you saying 100% of the school striping is paid out of the overtime budget?
Correct. By them directly. Yes.
So any school-related labor is paid by the Board of Education?
Correct.
But only the
As much as they
overhead,
can afford. We won't go, we're not gonna paint any more than they can afford, so they have to prioritize which schools, and I can assure you that number is not gonna cover 22 schools.
Sure.
We did
but,
3
but I'm saying,
parking lots last fall.
okay, I'm sorry, just to be clear. If overtime is time and a half, the Board of Ed is only paying the half. We pay the full amount, the regular salary to a driver or mechanic, whatever, plus the paint we pay for.
No.
No, let me just address that, Mr. Fryer. So we do pay, based on the 2405 contract, 37 and a half hours, 40 hours, it's paid already by us under DPW, under the wage rates.
And that's whether they call in sick, take personal time, take vacation.
So that takes care of Monday through Friday work. As soon as they report beyond those 40 hours, it is for striping, it's already on the Board of Ed for them to pay. So the 1.5 times, it's already on them beyond the 40 hours.
Okay, so they're not getting any break on it. As a matter of fact, it's more expensive for them to have it striped.
Right, just for clarification, the buildings and the property belong to the city. So I think the agreement that the Board of Education or Norwalk Public Schools has entered into is actually in our favor.
Yes.
Hey, I have a question.
Why is that? I'm sorry.
Well, because the buildings and the property are our responsibility.
Right. But every time we do a parking lot for them, it's going to be time and a half. They can only do it on Saturdays.
Well, because, yeah, they can't do it while school is in session.
Yeah, I got that. But if we, are you saying that we are required to restripe the parking lots? That's our responsibility as well?
Yeah, those are our buildings and that's our property.
Correct. So just so you have an idea, Mr. Pryor, so when they pave, and you're gonna see actually in our capital request, there are under DPW, under the building, we have money requests for capital improvements of the Ben Franklin parking lot. So when we need to repave those, it's under the DPW capital request. Under building, because it is a building facility.
Okay. Artie, I believe you had a question.
Under recs and parks for capital improvements, every single field on the school, and the parking lot, it will be under building maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Artie, your question?
Yeah, when I was on a Board of Ed, we had an agreement with DPW that when it came to snow removal, you guys did parking lot and you charged it to your account, and sidewalks was still Board of Ed responsibility. Is that still correct?
The sidewalks within 25 feet of the school, Pastor Artie. Other than that, Robert's guys do the sidewalks further outside of the school and the adjacent sidewalks within a certain distance. Like on Highland Avenue, we do pretty much all of the whole street because there's 3 schools over there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Other questions for Operations and Public Works?
Yes. So you mentioned that I think you said you already bought the salt. I also see another line item that says chemical lab and medical supplies, 5322. And then there's an increase of about 65%, $98,000. What is the reasoning behind that? Is that an increased headcount or?
Sorry, we're just.
Yeah, that's where the actual salt is, Kendrick.
Right, so that's the number that we took down to 200, Kendrick.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
I guess you could argue that it's a chemical.
Yes.
But of course, I have one request also. And it
Yes.
will be the engineering for consideration. 140305130 is the wage and salary temporary. I always fight with Henry on this one every single year, so cannot be different. This is the budget for our engineering summer interns. We asked for $50,000. This fund 5 interns for about 12 weeks, 37.5 hours, at least $15 an hour. I just want to let you know that engineering, with all the projects that we do, we really need the summer interns to be able to run all the projects. We use them to be behind the asphalt truck. When we do the patch contract, we need them. We have last year we had $24 million in capital projects that we are overseeing. So this is a way to be very economical. They learn a lot with us. We do even like engineering academy class that they take during the period. Some of those interns ended up coming back to us as full-time position if we have a position open. And we have this for every single year. So it is a way that we don't add more headcounts. We do not outsource as much because it will be more expensive. So I just want consideration because we need the money to be able to have the interns helping us in the summer.
Okay, so we'll make you a deal. You scrub all the other line items like we talked about to look carefully at FY 23 actual versus this, then we'll come back on that one.
I even have a,
To the mayor the other day, Mr. Abrams, on the Capitol. I was talking to him and I gave him a few $1,000s and then I asked for a few millions back.
Yeah, it's a nice deal on your part. I'm sorry, Jim, I
Well,
cut you off.
no problem. I think I like the idea of the interns. And as a matter of fact, I think, given the amount of projects you do have, is it possible to increase the number of interns and reduce overtime and premium time in other places?
We almost don't have much overtime on our engineering side. And most of the time, in a way to keep that reduced, that's why we use the interns.
Okay.
Thank you.
How about with grant money on for highways and things like that? Don't we get some grant money that we need to have some engineers sign off on a lot of those things?
Yes, so most of our projects, we always have one person watching the contractor on a daily basis. Some projects, we have to have people dedicated to the project the 8 hours a day that they are working, particularly if it is state or federal funded. And the other ones, we can circulate some of the staff. And they have to do daily reports and all that. So that's why it helps us a lot, particularly when we, here we do something different with the patch contract, because when we have any work that happens on the right of way, besides the encroachment permit, we charge what we call restoration fee. So we collect some money based on the size of the patch that they open on our road and eventually put out a bid. And then with that money, we fund that and we do a full depth repair. So we know that the fix will be up to our standards. And usually that is extremely time consuming because someone needs to follow that contractor all day long and they're just repairing sometimes 2x2 patches. So that's usually where we assign all our interns. So that is usually their main job, plus all the paving, sidewalks and all that. Unfortunately, I don't have my numbers here, but just last year, I think that we increasing 37% the amount of sidewalks that we did, and about 32% amount of miles that we paid.
Okay.
So that's why we need them to help us oversee the projects.
So I think my point was really that as you go through scrubbing all the other numbers, as Ed suggested, that there may be opportunities for interns to substitute for some of the other duties that we may have to pay full-time employees for.
We'll
Okay.
take a look. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else for operations and public works?
I'm sorry, are we going to go through each section, or have we just had our general discussion about it?
I think we've just had our general discussion, but if there's a specific item, Ann, that you have a question on, please raise it.
Okay, what is this 400,000 line item of object 5650 on operation chief, which is transferred to other funds?
Yeah, that was my question too.
Sorry, Ann, what was the org ID that the leading?
The org ID
Oh, I see
is,
it. I got it. I got it.
okay, 14010. And while everybody's looking for that, I would echo and applaud the use of interns. I think from a diversity standpoint, I think it's a fantastic thing. From a social standpoint, it gives young people the ability to have a job, a real job on their resume. And if there were opportunities across the board in the city to use more interns, that would be terrific. And I would think, and we haven't gotten to Parks and Rec yet, there would be a lot of opportunity in Parks and Rec.
Thank
So, so if we do the transfer to the other funds, and then I assume that you have some animals because you've got veterinary and medical expenses.
That's our drug testing for the CDLs.
It's mandatory.
I'm not sure why veterinary is in there, because if we don't use it for that, it's just the DOT drug testing.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we should clean up some of these account names.
So Henry and Tom will work with you on that after the fact. But if you could talk to this 5650 line item or for 14010, that would be helpful just to understand what this is, please.
Tom, is that like the sewer use fee that we pay or something?
If I'm not mistaken, part, if not all of this is for WPCA. They bill you for,
It's transferring
for
to
some of
the
your time, for
WPCA
some of Ralph's time,
enterprise
some of,
fund.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so what is that?
What is?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
we need more words around that, please.
Yeah.
It's the wastewater pollution control authority. And
it's like a sewer use fee.
so the taxpayers pay a sewer use fee that goes through the city billing department. So if the city overbills and an appeals hearing happens, sometimes we have to give money back. So it transfers from the WPCA's enterprise fund, which is a separate fund than what we're speaking of now, and back and forth in between the city. The WPCA also pays for a portion of everyone's salary, mostly at this table, except for Robert's, as part of a system that was in place long before I started.
I think it's the sewer use fee that we pay on our buildings, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
right, Tom?
Yeah, we also
Like
pay
for the
sewer
garage.
fee for all the buildings that we have. That's why, but it has to be transferred to the WPCA.
We have to like pay them, right?
Yeah.
Well, can we then accurately categorize that as being waste? or-
We can, so Ms. Young, I don't know if it will happen at this year because now it is all, but we're gonna flag. We have been, as Eileen said, we carry some of the names that was included in the budget for many, many years and now doesn't make much sense. And as soon as we see those, we're trying to change. So for the next, for October, we're gonna make a note that we're gonna change the name to be exactly what it is for.
Okay. And
Okay.
there's $25,000 for training and education?
Yeah, so that, what happened is that, this covers all the public works training. So we have the engineering training. Again, when we have all the junior engineers, we need to give them training in a lot of softwares, in a lot of drainage. We also send them to seminars. There's a lot of webinars. Also, our fleet also goes to training. For instance, now we just got the new Ford cars that the police department bought. I mean, Chevy. We all have Ford cars in our fleet. So now we need to know how to do some service in the Ford cars. So they need to get the Chevy. They need to get trained on the Chevy. There are softwares that they need to learn. So all that really applies to all the training that we give to all the public works. We only have one account, but goes to pretty much the three divisions.
Is it possible that we can keep that flat over the previous year?
Unfortunately not, because we are seeing an increase on the price of the conferences that we attend. We are even limiting the amount of people that we are sending. So it's more like a choose and pick. Unfortunately, most of the staff want to go to sometimes, we have this actually happening this week. There was like this kind of webinar that would cost $300. We had 5 people that were interested. Jim and I had to sit and we cut it down to 2 because we are trying. So we are asking for this increase pretty much to just keep the same level of service of training that we are giving as of now. We're seeing that now after COVID, because for 2-3 years, some of this conference didn't happen. They are trying to make more money and adding more. Go ahead, Chris.
Another thing is a lot of it is operations. I'll give you, for instance, we're participating with the Royton Fire Department for taking trees off of vehicles. It's $100 a person. We're sending 6 people. That's $600. This year we had to do CPR training because all of our staff need to be defibrillator trained because there's a defibrillator at every site in the city now in every park. So that's $3,000 through the Norwalk Hospital. I can chainsaw training, which still is a lot of money. Aerial lift training. We have a whole spreadsheet that I'd be happy to send you guys on all of the training and all of the dates because we keep a very copious, detailed account for liability purposes on all of our training, and I'd be happy to share it with you.
And also OSHA, because we have to keep up with OSHA, right? As well on some of those trainings.
That's not necessary as long as we know that the training expense that you have reviewed and have decided that this is a necessary expense to appropriately run your department and to keep our people safe and keep the public safe. That is the first need. So no need for the details.
Thank you.
Wanted to ask the question. The next question I have is on electric, and I think this is a more global question relative to the city overall, but obviously DPW is a large user of electricity at $700,000. So given we are all seeing on a residential level large increases to our electricity rates, how are you procuring, putting any kind of caps, negotiating rates? Because this is a very large number.
This is the flat contract that the city has, Mrs. Young. So this is just our share of that utility. So that gets negotiated pretty much once, the same that Neil was saying for all the buildings.
Okay.
And Neil's going to look at all those numbers again. Okay. Any other questions here? Because we still have Rex and Park to get through as well.
I have just one more question relative, and I know I asked this in years past. In years past, oil prices were relatively low. And I think at that time I asked whether or not it made sense to increase our expenditures for paving and sidewalks so that one actually can balance some of the work with actually what some of the commodity prices are. So if asphalt or oil prices are high, maybe we put off some until we see, not that we're trying to play the commodities market, but at some points of time, we do see historic lows in some of the commodity prices. So I just wanted to inquire about that because the asphalt budget is actually not that large here. So
You'll see all our paving program comes out of capital. So this asphalt is just to take care of the potholes and some
Got it.
small repairs we need to do.
okay.
But you're correct about that, and on the capital, so I'm gonna just to answer your question, what we do is we do consider how the marketing is doing when we do our bids for capital. So we were before, one thing that we did a few years ago, back to paving, we had the option to extend the contract without going out to bid again. Because this way, we had already a flat fee that was already pre-established when we opened the bid. And then 1 year after, when it was time to renegotiate that contract, we had the option to see if that whatever would be like a 3% rate increase was a good number, or if we could go out and bid it again. So we do take in consideration how the market is going and how we strategize to put the bid out for our capital projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Vanessa, just to review the bidding here, right? You're gonna look at every single line item again where the year to year looks flat and redo that based on actuals and zero-based budgeting approaches. We'll look at the $5,000 for interns and other areas that we may be able to leverage interns as well. We would thank you already for the hard work and some of the savings and scrubbing you've done thus far, and just ask you to please take one more very, very hard look through the whole budget there. Shall we move to Rex and Park at this point, please?
Sure, thank you so much. I'm just gonna let the other people go.
Yeah, understood. This is, sorry that this is going so late, but it's important for everybody.
Is
Yes.
Lamont still with us? No, I was joking. There's Mr. Hughes.
Hello, good evening.
Evening.
So Ken, I touched on the summary level earlier when we started off with all of Vanessa's world, just scrolling down again to the bottom. We've got a 4.8% request over 23 approved. Couple of head count items to talk about along the way. We will start, excuse me, administration, where the increase is 17.3%. And you may take it away.
Tom, this is Neil Rennie. I just wanted to know, are we going through the other stuff, or are we just going to apply what we talked about to my other buildings?
Same thing we talked about to your other buildings. Neil.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we can connect tomorrow on everything from start to finish, building wide, citywide.
Okay, no problem. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom, I believe Robert will explain.
Yeah, good afternoon, good late evening. It's gonna be me and Ken Hughes addressing a few things. One is our head count, and we'll address that. The other item is our increase in contract services. And then we have a few other items that have increased our budgets, not our fault. Let's say that. And I wish I had a lot of money to give you, like Vanessa did, but you'll have to wait on that. Because we'll have to really do the zero-based budgeting exercise that you talked about in order to really be really be responsible for what expenses we may incur over the year, fiscal year. But I'm gonna start out. We had 6 positions really here that we're talking about. There were 4 positions that we requested to be actually converted from part-time to full-time, which would require a new position. We were actually, I think the recommendation was just for 2 of the positions. We originally transferred 98, we originally transferred from our part-time salaries, we transferred $98,832 as a portion of the request we made. And that was for 4 positions, 2, 3 administrative specs, which were part-time seasonal, and then a temporary position, part-time position, which is really our aquatics coordinator. And our aquatics coordinator is responsible for our whole swimming program, our whole beach program in some respects. She shares that with Ken, and our dealings with the marina. That can't be a part-time job. And I don't know how it's existed as a part-time job this long. This person also has not been covered with benefits for some, I think she's been here all close to 30 years. And so it gets kind of ridiculous that, you know, these very fundamental positions, one, a youth sports position, another one is our administrative person that covers our front desk, answers all the phone requests, does our permits and our beach permits. These are really full-time jobs. So they came back and the accepted request was for 2 positions. And that we chose to be the aquatics coordinator, of course, because it's so fundamental. And the front desk was the position we chose. So that difference you have on the line item is $198,885. That's the difference in our approved budget for 23 and our recommended budget, $716,978 is $196,885. But we contributed $98,832 to that. So the difference is really $98,053 should be really, it's more accurate. And I think another issue we're gonna have is we took the dollars that they were being paid part-time before, put them in this pot, and we get 2 positions. So that means we don't have that part-time money for those other 2 positions, which we require to have. So that's you know, we would be grateful to accept the recommendation, and you know, maybe come back before you next year as well to try and get those other positions full time. But we do need some money put back in our part-time budget so we can pay, so we can continue those other 2 part-time positions which are funded to recreation. So that's the head count that we are requesting.
So at a minimum, you're looking for $48,000 back in your budget for part-time?
Yeah.
Do I
Yes.
understand that?
Yes. Because we realize, you know, the budget's tight. We realize money is, you know, I mean, the demand is high. So we're willing to, you know, we're doing some things, I think, to make, you know, things a little easier. We're going through right now a fees and charges study. We picked a consultant to really look empirically at our fees and charges. You know, doing a demand study, elasticity study for this market, so that we can come back to the mayor with some real good information about fees and charges. Fees and charges are really one of the ways parks departments all over the country actually help supplement their activities and programs. And we haven't really looked at that seriously here. And there's really no connection as there should be. And so we're looking to make some strides in those areas so that we can help the city budget.
Mhm. Okay. And again, what breaks if we don't give you back the $48,000?
Well, one position is for our youth sports person that works with our athletic coordinator. And then one other position is our scheduler, which she scheduled all our leagues and our sports fields. And that's becoming a full-time position because more and more leagues are being added. We added the American Legion again, we added Big Ruth, and we're adding a lot of select teams that are. So there's a lot of demand on our fields. That position becoming full-time. And so those two positions, we do need to at least keep them part-time.
Can I ask a question, Ed?
Go ahead.
These two new part-timers that you're going to bring on, let's take scheduling for one. Will the person that comes in there and is able to schedule on a more, I guess, let me say more accurate or more timely basis, is that going to increase our revenue anyway?
Well, we're going to increase our revenue with this fee study. I can tell you that right now.
How much? Well, I thought you were just hiring a consultant.
We are.
And so the results of that are you're going to have them available soon?
Well, the fee study will be available by June. We probably don't anticipate raising fees until fiscal year 25. So that's why we need to keep these people on part-time until we can get to that point. We also, as you know, Jim, last year we went before the budget to get money for a scheduling system, a new reservation scheduling system that will centralize our scheduling, not only with us, but we'll have information that we can see that the school districts are also scheduled. So we have a full schedule. That coupled with some fee restructuring and the demand and the increase in demand that we're having now is going to increase revenue.
So I guess my question, I'll cut to the chase. Can we fund this $48,000 through increased fees?
This calendar year.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But I guess what I'm saying is the increase, the fee study will really educate us to fiscal year 25. So, I mean, if we were to increase fees now, we could do that.
Well, I would, so that's my question is that you were talking about a budget for next year. So do you anticipate that we'll increase fees enough to fund this increase in part-time help?
Yeah, yes, we will in 25.
Yeah. But in 25 or 23, 24?
Year 24. Because we're in 23.
So the 24th season. So next year, when we've got that part-timer on board, we're going to be paying for that person.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, I would think that when we look at revenues, we should see significant enough of an increase that's going to support the spending on this side. Yes?
It was a question.
Was that a question?
It was a statement. I was looking for an agreement.
Will you confirm that in FY? Yeah. Will you confirm that in FY 24 we will see enough of an increase in revenues to cover $48,000 in headcount expense?
Okay.
Will you commit to that?
Yes, I'll commit to it.
Okay.
Thank
Then I think the 48,000 is well spent.
Okay.
A couple of follow-on questions to that. Just roughly, what is the revenue for this department? I know we're going to talk about revenues later, but we're talking about budgets here. So I think it would be helpful to sense of that number.
I think the projection is a little over $1 million, but Tom would have the figures he's right here.
I have it. They have a breakup by,
And when the scheduler schedules time in the fields, is there a fee to use the fields at that time?
Yeah, there is a fee, but let me tell you the history. The history of fees here, they were very minimal, very minimal, and so that's why we're doing the fee study to really look at what the demand is and what we can actually charge. And so it'll be an empirical study, not one where we're guessing or we're comparing with other peers, but we're looking at our market.
And how much are you paying a consultant for this study?
About $60,000.
$60,000.
Mhm.
Is it possible that, do we have to pay a consultant $60,000 to compare our fees to all of our neighbors?
It's not a comparative study. Those are useless. It's not a comparative study. It's an empirical demand elasticity study. And believe me, they work. I've done them in Seattle. They work. They give you the prices. They give you the information so that public officials that are doing the decision making, they will know what to charge. And these are done all over the country. These comparative studies it's like comparing oranges to apples because our markets are different. And so they're only good for, if you're going somewhere, but it doesn't tell us what we can actually charge.
Right. And this study's in the field right now, is that correct?
Right. The study,
So it's
the study is not a study. We're signing a contract with, it's went through the council and it'll come before the common council tomorrow.
so we believe that we're gonna have this study done by the end of this year, and we still need to go through a public hearing to be able to implement the new fees. But the idea that Braxton Parks want to bring to the table is that we do believe that one way to alleviate our operating budget is to create more revenue. But we want to create the revenue in the right way. So we don't want to be the ones saying, oh, we need to charge more on our aquatics fee, if maybe the people that is taking the aquatic classes are the ones that cannot really afford that extra fee. So maybe the study will tell us that maybe for, I don't know, renting the soccer field to another entity should be having a 400% increase. So that's what this study will tell us. And they're gonna look at every single fee that Braxton Parks does, including the renting of their revenues, and then will tell us exactly which fee should be addressed and what it based on the market that is using it.
And they'll be doing focus groups with audiences within Norwalk. So they'll be doing focus groups and study groups. So they will be talking to groups here in Norwalk in every sector. So
got it. Thank you. Any other questions on the administration portion of Rexham Park?
Yeah, just quickly, where is that, the expense for that consultant on the budget?
Oh, well, it's not in here because it's done with ARPA money. It was done with ARPA.
It was done where?
ARPA money?
ARPA.
The federal COVID relief fund.
Oh, okay.
All right, so anything else on administration?
Just,
Let's move to social programs, please.
Sorry, can we just hold, are we reinstating the 48 and part-time or leaving it as is for now?
I think I'd like to see commitment on the revenue side, but
Yeah.
pending that, I'm okay with putting it back in, but I want to see firm commitment on revenue.
You got my commitment.
Pending revenue numbers.
And, and is the study going to be done at the end of this fiscal year? And if so, I would encourage you.
Calendar year, Ms. Young.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, not by the fiscal year.
Okay.
Still signing the contract, unfortunately. But those revenues will be affected for the FY 25.
I would just encourage you, if there was an opportunity to raise revenues for this coming fiscal year, raise
There
fees
is.
in a nominal way that you begin to cover more of the costs. I think that is a valiant.
Yeah, that's what we want to see, guys. That's what we want to see.
Chairman?
Yes.
In fact, I talked to, had a talk with Mayor's office and Recs and Parks Committee. We went through a discussion and we are bumping fees a little bit according to inflation. And so we discussed that at the Recs and Parks meeting. And then we'll be having a public hearing because it's required by ordinance. But they're just bumped like Ms. Yang has said, they're just bumped an inflationary amount.
Understood, but let's see what that looks like. Let's see that
Okay.
revenue, and then we can commit to the 48. Let's
Okay.
move to social programs, please. So this-
All right, total here is actually a reduction of 8%.
Yep. So any questions, comments on these line items?
The usual question is on the other professional services, other contractual services. That doesn't look like there's anything been done on those from a budget, a zero budgeting standpoint.
So these are actually, Mr. Freya, these are actually all of our beach concerts, our concerts and our movies down at the beach. So we do have a set movie schedule and concert schedule that we follow every year, which is why these numbers are relatively the same every year. And if you go to the year-to-date expenditures, I believe we're 100% encumbered already in that account.
So then you don't have enough.
No, because we booked the concerts now up to the 4th of July weekend.
Right.
Yeah, they're all booked.
Yeah, I see zero remaining, Ken. You are fully encumbered.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all booked. We'll be putting out publicity in upcoming weeks.
Okay. Other questions here before we move to cultural programs?
Nope.
Then let's move to culture, please. Again, a pretty significant decline. Any questions by anybody on this?
Not for me.
Okay, let's move to sports. Again, a decline. Any issues, questions, comments here?
Nope.
All right, let's do the next two, physical fitness and playgrounds. Again, declines on both. Any questions or comments from anyone?
No.
I don't think we need to discuss the boat show. Veterans Committee, any issues there? Okay, let's go to grounds and facilities, please. Questions or comments from board members here? One question from me, line item 5298, other contractual services. You requested $50,000 this year. We spent 43 historically. What's driving the increase this year, especially from last year?
So this is the account that we use for our portable toilets throughout the city. With the additional leagues and things, requires additional portable restrooms. I will be coming to you probably in the next month or so, because I'm currently minus $24 in this account. So the need is there. I mean, ever since COVID, residents now push for twice a week cleaning on these portables, and it gets really expensive.
No,
Especially-
I get it now that I know what it is. I fully understand it. Just, when you see there's a generic other contractual services line item. So thank you, Ken. That's
Yep.
very helpful.
Okay.
And this is just for our program. So what we're doing, it would be a lot higher, but what we're doing with our people who rent our facilities or rent our indoor facilities, they're going to outdoor facilities, they have, in their permits will be a requirement to pay for their own porta potties. So it could be a lot higher.
Okay, understood. Any other questions on grounds and facilities? Then let's move to calf pasture. Any questions here? This looks as relatively flat year to year.
We really tried to keep, you know, our real need was for that staffing. So that's why we really looked, that was our need this year. You know, the first thing we talked about. So we kind of pushed everything, our needs toward that.
Yep. So if we look at the next few areas, Vets Park, the Heritage Matthews Mansion, Boulder Farm, the garage, Cranberry Park, Ryan Park. Any questions on any of these items from any of the board members? All right, so as it relates to Rexham Park, again, a few things here, right? Every line item that is a direct pickup from the FY23 approved number, again, need you to look at that, look at it based on FY23 actuals, just not direct lifts on that, see what we can squeeze there. The 48,000 on part-time resource, want to see what the revenue comparison is. You know, if that number looks proper, we'll put that funding back within the budget and move forward with that. Okay.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
Just want to thank you for your time and your patience. I know it was a very long night and you have been having those for many days in a row. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for listening.
We're all in this together, guys. So
Hey, you guys had a long wait. Really?
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I
Yes.
just want to say thank you to the BET members, but also thank you to the department heads. They're coming in willing to work with us. And I think what we're doing this year is probably better than we've done in most years. We're actually scrutinizing virtually every line item. And I like the idea that we're going back into and seeing something that, okay, this year it's 12-12, next year is 12-12. Rather than actually look from a zero base point, as you're mentioning, Ed, they're just transferring one over to the next year. I think what we're doing really is good. And they recognize their obligation to keep their budgets as low as possible. We're recognizing our obligation to keep the budget as low as possible and hopefully be able to pull some things out and not overspend or not over budget, but underspend.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for this evening. For the Board of Estimate and Tax members, we're back at it again tomorrow at 6:30 p.m.
So tomorrow night is Henry's World, including me and Chitsame and Sharon and a few others. And then we'll also be addressing the grants for the Harbor Commission, Fair Housing, Probate Court, Redevelopment Agency, and the Transit District.
And you sent that earlier, Tom, right?
Yeah, that one came out probably around midday. And I would encourage you all to give the Zoom link a quick try tomorrow. And if you don't have it, let me know sooner rather than later.
Great.
All right. So everybody rest up and we'll talk again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you all.
All right.
Thank you for all your help.
Bye-bye.
Bye.